Second point I want to talk a little bit about is immigration. And there are many, many efforts going on around the country to demonize immigrants. You've got these local initiatives like in Hazleton, which is a case that I was involved in. Mayor Barletta, who has now been elected to Congress, said, I'm going to make Hazleton the most difficult place in the country for undocumented immigrants to live. You've got all the measures in Arizona. The problem with all these measures is it's very difficult to distinguish who's documented and who's undocumented. And what happens is, between the legislation and the rhetoric that flows around that, is to demonize these people and make people afraid of anybody who looks and sounds foreign, especially if they are Latino. It creates a toxic environment for foreigners, and it's a very dangerous thing. And the message that I want to give to you is, do not accept the first premise that these bullies rely on. And that is that these undocumented immigrants are in this country to rape, rob, and kill you, and if not, to at least take your jobs. Because it is not true. Let me just tell you a quick story, and then I'll finish, about what happened in our Hazleton case. Because in that case, the mayor claimed that a huge influx of undocumented immigrants after September 11th from the New York metropolitan area bankrupted the town, bankrupted the healthcare system, drove the schools into near bankruptcy and was destroying the schools, and drove the crime rate through the roof. So they had absolutely no data to support that, and in litigation, the really nice thing is you have a judge who can force the other side to produce all sorts of records. We got all those records, and so at trial, what we ended up showing is that first, on whether they bankrupted the community, that in 2000, when the mayor took over, they had a $1.3 million deficit on a $7 million budget. That's a pretty huge deficit. By 2005, they had a $250,000 surplus. 2006, they still had a $35,000 surplus. So much for bankrupting the community. Healthcare system. Healthcare system admitted that they were unprepared for the huge influx of new people, bigger population. There were long waits. They mounted a capital campaign where they grew the hospital, more beds, and you know what? Now the hospital waits and emergency room waits are no longer than anywhere else, and they ran a $4 million profit. Huh, so much for bankrupting the healthcare system. The schools, we got from the school district, we found out that in fact, yes, English as a second language had expanded dramatically. They'd had 5 people, now they had over 1,000. So yes, the composition of the community had changed, but in fact, the tax rate, the taxes had not been raised, class sizes were no bigger, and test scores had not dropped. So much for destroying the schools. And last but not least was crime. Because, you know, if you're on the national level, you can scream terrorism. When you're on the local level, you scream crime. Because when people are scared, you can get them to do whatever you want. So in Hazleton, they were saying these undocumented immigrants were raping and killing everybody. We got their data, and what we showed was that in a 6-year period, they had 8,500 crimes. That's jaywalking to murder. 21 were linked to undocumented immigrants. So I've got the mayor on the stand, and he's sputtering and saying, no, you're twisting my words. I'm saying, no, we're just using your data. He says, I'm talking about serious violent crimes like murder and rape, and it's all undocumented immigrants. So of course we had that data as well. And what we found was in that 6-year period, there were 428 serious violent crimes. And you know how many were linked to undocumented immigrants? 3. So the trial day ends with the mayor still on the stand, and their lawyers come up to me and they say, we think your numbers are wrong. And I said, well, by all means, you know, we want to make sure that everything's accurate. We don't want to mislead the judge. Please go over the numbers. They're your numbers or your data. You have it. So the next morning, we're in court and getting ready to examine the mayor. Their lawyers walk in, and they've got these triumphant looks on their faces. I'm thinking, all right, here comes something. So they walk up to me. I say, good morning. They say, good morning. They say, we've gone over your data, and it's wrong. I said, oh, well, how's it wrong? They said, well, it's not 3 violent crimes out of 428. It's 4. And your reaction was my reaction to them. I said, look, 4, take 5, take 6. You have built an entire campaign by demonizing a hardworking group in order to pass these laws and for basically reasons of demagoguery. And the data that we found in Hazleton is reflective of what's going on around the country. There are studies that have been produced by government, by universities, by mainstream organizations, everybody but the far right wing, the Federation for American Immigration Reform and others, who will show you that the vast majority of undocumented immigrants who come to this country come here, they work hard, they want to make a better life for their family, and they commit crimes at far lower rates than citizens do, because they know that in fact they have far more to lose if they stray in some fashion. So when we're fighting against all of these anti-immigrant measures, and I'd say anti-immigrant, not anti-illegal immigrant, because you can't distinguish, right? If you're going to poison the well against undocumented immigrants, you're poisoning the well against immigrants. Remember that. Do not give in to their demagoguery and their scapegoating by accepting their premise that these people are bad and don't belong here. No human being is illegal. So thank you. I'm happy to take questions when we're done here on either of these topics or anything else that any other human rights issue. Thank you.